everybody. Welcome to another episode of You Don't Know Squatch. How you doing today, Jim?
I'm awesome. How are you, Josh?
All right. So what do we got on the plate for today?
Hey, we have got a real treat. This is a friend of mine named Scott Carpenter. He's a researcher in Tennessee. He's had some really bizarre experiences, and he's an author, and he's got a new book out talking about the DNA study that we've actually talked about in a previous episode. But Scott's going to have a different perspective on it, and I think it's going to be worth listening to for our listeners, giving some more scientific proof that the DNA study was valid.
Well, these episodes are always chock full of information, so what do you say we get to the phone line?
Let's go.
Your call will be answered in the order it was received.
Hey, Scott, this is Jim Myers and Josh Cantu with You Don't Know Squatch. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're
pretty
awesome.
good.
Hey, we really appreciate you being willing to be a guest on our show tonight. And
Another author, I understand.
Another author, yes. I have friends in high places, my friend. Yeah.
I know, man. That's killing it. I love it.
I have intelligent friends, unlike me. So
yeah, I couldn't write a book.
So Scott, I've known Scott for a couple years. Scott was one of the speakers at the very first Mile High Mystery Conference that we put on 2 years ago, and we got to know each other then. And we've corresponded and chatted a few times since then. But Scott lives in Tennessee, and a fellow Bigfoot researcher, and has recently finished Is this your second book or?
It's actually my fifth book.
Oh, I'm
Wow.
sorry. I apologize. Your fifth book.
So a veteran author.
A veteran author, no less. So
I don't know if I can say. I mean, the first book's the hardest, but
yeah.
I self-publish, so
Okay.
it's not like I have a wide following. I might sell 1,000,
Yeah.
1,500 copies. So
Hey,
we self-publish too.
yeah. That's more books than I have ever sold. So, but
yeah, I'm not a David Pilates here.
yeah. We won't even try and put ourselves in the same camp with David, and David's a mutual friend of both Scott and I. So, well, listen, the reason I was hoping you could be on tonight, and I know this is evening your time as it is ours. You're an hour ahead, but I would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about some of your Sasquatch research there in Tennessee. Anything that you'd like to share about your research,
Sure.
how you got into it, and some things that you've experienced, and then we'll end by having you share from your book, because your most recent book is all about the Ketchum DNA study that we've already talked about on the show, and I think you'll bring a different perspective to that.
Now, just to be clear, this is separate than what the FBI study just came out, the findings from that FBI study?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is totally separate. This was privately, the Sasquatch Genome Study was, like a privately funded venture between a loosely connected group of several individuals.
Yeah.
The best way to put it.
Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting to hear what you have to say on that, and what you came up with for your book. So, but tell us a little bit about Sasquatch research from your side. How did you get into doing this, and how long have you been doing it?
Well, I've been in this madness for 10 years.
It is a madness. I'll agree with you there.
Yeah, it is madness. About 10 years ago in June, I was fishing on a local lake, and I was off the shoreline of a little recreation area, about 1,500 acres. And I'd been at my lunch hour. I worked in an office situation where I was kind of like in a kind of isolated. I had my own, so there was nobody to talk to during my lunch hours, just by myself. So I started watching these crazy videos on YouTube back then, about these guys that were, looking for Bigfoot. And, 2 or 3 different videos, they were whooping and, doing all that craziness. And so I don't know what, seriously, I don't know what got into me. It was a beautiful morning. I'm throwing topwater for bass off the point. and it's just once it's on the lake and it's just quiet and calm. And
nobody else near you.
For some silly reason, I made some half-hearted effort to make some whoops. And and it echoed. You can imagine on a quiet morning on the lake, it echoed everywhere. And it was actually like a high-end subdivision across the lake, and I'm thinking, oh God, I hope nobody over there heard that, But I go back to fishing. Well, I've been, maybe a couple minutes, and I start hearing something coming through the woods, and it's loud and it's crashing. And at first, I'm thinking, it must be some people on horseback or something. And then it kept coming and getting louder and louder. Of course, the point, the end of the point is this, growed up. It's June. It's, there's all kinds of, there's brush and brambles. So, it kind of becomes obvious this isn't a horse. So this thing, whatever it is, keeps coming, down towards the water. So, of course, I stop fishing and I'm just kind of sitting there quietly. As this thing comes down, it comes all the way almost to the water's edge. The sun is coming up to like my right, and the point's kind of in front of me. So, there's a bunch of long shadows, and you can't really see back into the woods. Well, whatever this thing is, it's tearing all kinds, just crashes and making all kinds of crazy noises. And then it gets down to like just, a few feet from the shoreline, kind of stays back, and then I can hear it moving. And it walks back and forth, and you can hear it stomping. And every now and then you'd hear it, make a noise like a whoop. And of course, at this point, I'm kind of like freaking out. So I'm trying to find the trolling motor button. And I'm trying to, I think I'm just a little bit too close, So I finally hit it and pushed myself a little bit back off the shore. And, this thing continues to go like up and down this shoreline, for a couple minutes. And then I hear like a couple, three, just just real loud sighs. And then whatever it is decides it's looked enough, I guess, and it turned around and it started walking back in the woods, but instead of, it wasn't making the big noise, it was just like a bipedal, like a crunch, just as slowly went back up into the woods and off, until I couldn't hear anymore. Of course, I'm sitting there flabbergasted. I'm like, what in the world has just happened? I couldn't believe it. And so that was the experience that prompted me to actually started researching. So the next weekend, I grab a video camera and a pair, put some boots on, and I go in the area and start looking around to see what in the world made this noise, and that's how it all got started.
Huh. Isn't it ironic? First time you ever think of doing something like that, and then something comes in reply to your whoop.
We were just talking about cosmic karma, and then
we were.
Yeah. And trust me, it was a bad whoop. It wasn't.
Yeah.
But it must have, whatever. And so that got me started. And then I literally just fumbled around. The first time I went in there, I had an encounter. I found an area that looked like they were. It was like it had a really strong urine smell, but it looked like a little shelter. Looked like a place where a tree had fallen, and they added some limbs and stuff, and it just one thing led to another. That started that, and I started leaving food, and I started going every weekend, and it was just trial and error. And like everybody else, when I first started this thing, I thought the Bigfoot was a bipedal ape, probably semi-intelligent bipedal ape. Well, it didn't take me but about a year to figure that it's not true. And they started doing things, to demonstrate they weren't bipedal apes. And so it kind of went from a bipedal ape to, well, maybe it's some sort of, missing link, because it's showing a lot of intelligence. It's disabling my cameras, or they know that if they stand in front of the camera will go off and won't go off again until they move, and that sort of thing. And so, that led into, I started having all these different experiences, and I kind of feel like I was in over my head because, I was starting to be bluff charged, footprints. I had a sighting. they were doing all this craziness. And so I started looking. I said, I felt like I needed a little bit of, someone to bounce stuff off of, a little bit of help. So I didn't really want to join like a BFRO group like that. I actually had, out of curiosity, I'd found and read David's book, The Hooper Project.
Okay.
And so, he had his contact information in there. So I just started sending him emails and started sending him stuff saying, "Hey, have you guys ever had this happen? Have you guys ever had that happen?" And he said, "Well, yeah, we've had this." And so obviously I was sending him stuff that was kind of proving that, I just wasn't some lunatic out here.
Right.
That, what I was experiencing, they had experienced and then I was, just by accident, I figured out that, they're peekers and they're watchers. And there was one time I was bent over in the feeding station. I had the camera in my hand. It's just a 480p camera, cheap camera, but it was pointing to my left, and I'm messing, the other direction. And one stuck his head up just for a second or two, and then when I swung around, went away. But that's when I kind of figured out, hey, they're watching my face, they're watching my eyes, and they're. And so I started filming behind me, and then I started getting some, at that point I got a little bit of footage that was worth something.
So to explain that real quick, you have a camera that's pointing over your shoulder, looking back.
That's right. In my humble opinion, if you're ever going to get one on camera in the current situation, in most, let's be honest, the Patterson Gimlin was a one-off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's never happened since. No one's never had one walk out in the open deliberately in front of the camera. So all my stuff is. So I actually got the idea, and I made me a little rig. I had a camera on my shoulder. All the time I'm in the woods, it's filming behind me, and that's how. And of course, 10 years of. Now I'll be honest, it's a slow, painful process. 10 years of doing this, and I probably have maybe 8 to 10 minutes of footage. And of that 8 to 10 minutes of footage, maybe 2 minutes is really intriguing and actually shows, a Bigfoot, a plot Bigfoot moving, and it's obvious what it is. You just have to have cognitive dissonance to say, no, that's not.
Is there any place you share this footage that people like our listeners could check it out?
Yeah, it's on my. They can find this footage on my YouTube channel. Just if you go to YouTube and search Scott Carpenter Bigfoot, you'll find it.
Okay, good deal. All right.
Yeah, he's got some interesting stuff.
I shared.
There.
I don't. Early on in my research, I don't know if you remember the late Chuck Prawl. He was the guy that was in the wheelchair, and he used to do he used to do a lot of research. He knew a lot of people.
What was his name?
Because Chuck.
Chuck
Prawl.
Okay.
And we just started corresponding because he saw some stuff on my channel, and I promised him. He said, "Well, do me a favor." He said, "For goodness sakes, if you get footage, please don't do this crap where, I've got footage, and 2 weeks from now I'm going to premiere it or whatever." And don't hide it or make people pay for it. And I told him, "No, I'm not." I said, "This is what it's about." So every bit of footage I've got that I think is worthy of posting, I post it.
Oh, cool.
And some people, if a person wants to look at it, that's paranoid, that's fine. If a person wants to look at it and say, "Yeah, I can see that," that's fine. I pretty much, have been the type, this is what I got, and I'm going to post it. If you don't like it, that's fine. You just like it. If you think it's something, that's fine. You think it's something. I usually won't post it unless I've done follow up. I've gone back to the area and there's nothing there, and there's, I usually try to have some protocols I follow. Like if it has eyeballs and it moves, and I usually say it ain't paranoid.
Right.
But some people still want to argue that. But that's fine. I'm a live and let live guy. I post it. You like it, that's great. You don't, that's great too. But I've always posted everything. So, everything I've got, is out there. There's a lot of stuff I don't post because, I just not 100% on it. I don't post it unless I feel like I personally am 100% on
That there's something
You
for
know what?
people to gain from
That's
it.
that's a good deal. Like, if you don't mind, we could share it in this episode's link
Sure.
so the
Yeah.
listeners can check it out too.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Cool,
Please
cool.
do.
Why do you think, like, this is a thing that keeps coming up, and I'm just curious. Why does everyone think that Bigfoot and cameras don't mix? I know, like, we don't have a lot of footage of it, but you went to the
Well-
lengths of pointing it behind you. Now, I know, like, sharks seem to be attracted to cameras because the electric signal is sent out, and they're attracted to that in the water. But why do you guys think that Bigfoot would do the same?
Well, the big picture, you got to understand the Bigfoot is a human hybrid who's as smart as we are, not smarter, knows who we are, knows what we are, and knows all about our technology. They know what a camera is, and they know what it does.
Okay.
They do not want to be filmed. Okay, they have a set of rules. Do we know all the rules? No. Do I know who sets the rules? No. But I know they have rules, and I know they follow. And one of those rules is do your best not to get your picture taken. Now, that doesn't mean it won't happen, but do your best, not to get your picture taken. And they have an ability to sense technology, especially trail cameras. You put one up, I don't care how well you camouflage it. Well, when you hide it, as soon as it goes up, whether they watch you put it up, or whether they have the ability using infrasound or some other method of detection, they know where it is, they know what it is, and they know how to avoid it. They know how to disable it. And a lot of people freak out when I say that, but I think my 10 years of research and the last 40 years of no one getting
Right.
real clear footage is pretty much proof that this is it. I mean, I've got decent footage on the back trail, but they're still, it's still Team 6 on steroids. Okay. And,
Yeah.
that's one of David Pilates' little things, and he's right. That's what they are. And since, it's just like, let's be honest. If you were really looking for me and I didn't want you to find me, I could go in the mountains right now and you'd never find me. You wouldn't.
Right. Because I would
make sure of
anticipate
that.
where you're going, and I would watch you from a distance, and
Yeah.
yeah,
You
we
never
can hide
find
them. Right.
And let's be honest, Bigfoot, most people aren't even looking for him, right?
No.
Yeah.
So
No.
it's even easier to stay hidden. I mean, I don't know how many times me and my children would go up in the woods hiking and somebody'd have to go to the bathroom, right? And we'd get off the trail 30 or 40 yards, and we'd have bright colored clothing on and everything. We could be coming back, and someone would be coming back trail, and I said, just hang on, just stand still. And we'd stand still out in the open. And these people walking down the trail would be blabbering to each other, and they'd never see us. They'd walk right by us.
Yep.
Never.
I've done
ever
the same
look
thing.
off.
So I guess my question is kind of, are we suggesting that it's like a biological EMP?
A biological
what,
what,
Ed?
Josh?
Electric magnetic pulse. Something that disables electronics.
I think they have the ability to. I think they have knowledge of the ether, and they have knowledge that this is an electromagnetic universe, and they have the ability. They have the ability to create infrasound.
Okay.
And if you can create infrasound, you can do a lot of things, including disabling electronics. But you've got that phenomenon where they can drain batteries. You hear a lot of researchers go in the woods with
Right.
their battery's fully charged, and it's happened to me, and every battery
It's
they got
happened to me too.
goes dead.
Now, are you
I
guys
can't
in high
explain.
altitude when that happens?
What now?
Are you guys in high altitude when the battery drains?
No.
He's
Okay.
in Tennessee, and I'm in the
I'm not.
mountains. We
I'm
both
not
had it
high
happen.
altitude over here in the Smokies for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I know like Jim is, and it's like when we throw up our drone, our batteries deplete the higher in altitude we get.
No, what I'm talking about is like one time I had a lady that called me from around Nashville. And she was definitely in a high altitude, and she was getting her degree in botany, and she had this little study going on out in this little wildlife preserve, and these things started aggravating her. She called me and said, "Hey, help me here. All I want to do is finish my study, and these things keep running me out of the woods, throwing stuff at me." And so, I went up there, and I took my cameras, and I had my little, I had 4 or 5 batteries. I'd gone up there and stayed in the hotel room the night before, met her and her husband, and then we went, and then I followed her up to her place where she was, doing her stuff. And I had 4 or 5 fully charged batteries. I had the camera, and it had a fully charged battery. And I had a DVR with 2 brand new AA batteries. And literally, we started into the woods, and we went around a curve, and the battery on my, that I was filming with went dead.
Fully charged.
And so
when you started.
Fully charged.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I went, changed it out, and I went to every battery. I had probably 5 batteries total with me. Every battery was dead, wouldn't do anything. And the brand new AA batteries that I had and put in the DVR were dead.
Well,
of course, we weren't going to turn around and go back, so we continued without it.
Yeah, and I've done the same
but
thing.
But I can't explain that. I'm not saying it was Bigfoot or nothing. I'm just saying, but most of the time when I go in the woods, that doesn't happen.
Oh yeah, like I've never been out, and the batteries that I charged died like that. Even if we are in higher altitude,
Yeah.
They burn through the juice slower. I mean, faster than they would at a lower altitude. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. But that was weird. I mean, Les Trail, when he was trying to, he had fully charged trail cameras fail, and he had those, the $800 Reconics. So I think they had the ability to do stuff, and to be honest with you, they can just do it. They're smart enough. They're smart as we are, right? So if you're aware of how a trail camera works, basically it's got a passive infrared sensor, and when something passes in front of it, it goes off, right?
Yeah.
Well, like if you just stand in front of the camera, it'll go off and it'll be a whiteout because you're so close to it. If you don't move for the passive infrared sensor, you become the standard, right?
Yeah.
Your temperature becomes the new standard. So it won't go off again. So if I'm wanting to mess around or I'm wanting to take food from the feeding station that I have cameras on, all one of them has to do is set something or stand in front of the camera and just stand there. And then after everybody's done getting their food and doing whatever they're doing, I just step out of the way, the camera goes off, and it films nothing. And I probably got 50 of those types of situations where the camera goes off, it's nothing but a pure whiteout. And then when the camera goes off again, all the food's missing.
Well, have you ever had? I've found a difference, and I'm curious for you, Scott. I found a difference between video equipment and audio equipment. Audio equipment, They don't seem to mind, and they'll walk around and vocalize around it, but it's different than video equipment. Have you found that?
I found the same thing. They don't care. They don't seem to care if it's audio because it's not taking a visual of it.
Right.
I mean, I've got footage. Probably the best footage I got is what I call the white Bigfoot footage, where me and my son are walking out, and it comes up behind me, and it's like it realizes I got a camera on my shoulder. It goes, oops, and he's just his head and the top of his shoulders are above the foliage, and immediately goes down. I mean, the whole sequence is only about 2 seconds. And I mean, he's actually moving so fast he kind of stretches his face out, when you slow it down. But, he realized he screwed up. He jumped up there. They're not perfect. They're good, but they're not perfect. And he jumped up there to take a look at us, and he saw the camera on my shoulder, and down he went. And then
this is the rear-facing camera?
Walk along, you can kind of see the top, just the very top of his head. He's just hiding behind the bush till I go around the corner. But the DVR, I put one in a black sock, tied it, and put it out in the woods near where I was camping, and they were knocking on it, and you could hear them.
They don't care.
Making noises around it, clicking, and all kinds of craziness.
Yeah, they don't seem to care, and they obviously know the difference. I mean, it's really clear they obviously know the difference.
So it's not a frequency generated by the mechanics that's setting them off. Like, they don't know that it's a camera because of batteries working or anything like that. They just know the difference.
I think they know it's a camera.
Because it emits a beam.
People don't get. I think if people would realize, just think about this. You're trying to capture another human being on camera that doesn't want to be captured. Now, what would you do to do that? How would you fool that person? In other words, they know what a camera is. They know what a camera looks like. So if you put a trail camera out in the woods on the side of a tree, he's going to know that's a camera, and he's going to evade it. If you have a camera and you're taking pictures, he's going to know you got a camera. He's going to evade it. How would you fool them? How would you, how would you get it? How would you get a picture of me if I didn't want you to take my picture? And once people get over that hump and realize that, I think you actually may get more footage. But until people get over that hump to realize that what they are and realize that they, what they're dealing with, you're still going to get it's just a dumb ape, and I can throw this camera up here.
They won't know the difference, yeah. With
no camouflage or with no forethought. And, he's just like a deer. He's just going to wander in front of it and stare at it. It's not going to happen.
Right.
So you're suggesting that if people actually hid the cameras, they would have better luck recording them.
Well, I think if hiding the camera, it has to be even more stealthy than that. I think I use the back trail camera on my shoulder, and I think it looks like it's part of my equipment. It's not. It's not like a camera I got in front of my face and I'm pointing it. And so I think if people did the back trail camera sort of thing, either with now I've got a little knockoff GoPro, and I use that GoPro rig, to film behind me. But from a distance, it's kind of hard to tell which way this thing filming, because so many people use GoPros now, go forward to back, So if it's pointing backwards, are they going to know? Probably not, unless they get up close. But I mean, you got to think in terms of I'm trying to fool, a sentient, cognizant, very smart person, and try to get his photo. So that lots of times I'll mix it up. I'll try to be unpredictable. I might hang a GoPro a plot watcher. I'm walking up the trail and I'll veer off the trail a few yards and strap a plot watcher to a tree real fast, turn it on, and keep walking. Stuff like that. Just keep, mix it up. And, sometimes curiosity kills the cat. I found that, if I put the cameras up in a location where they've never seen them before, they are curious about them. They'll mess with them. And I've got footage of one actually licking the trail.
I was going to come to that. I'm glad you mentioned it.
Sticks his eye in it, and he licks it. He literally licked it, and you see his tongue coming out.
It's real close. His face is real close to the camera, but you can definitely see a tongue come out. And how high up was that camera?
That camera was 9 foot off the ground.
9 foot off the ground, and the face is right in front of the camera, licking it.
The skeptic in me wants to try to poke holes into what you're saying, but what you're saying actually has merit in the scientific community. If you the lengths they had to go through to record the lions for Planet Earth, I mean, they were building cameras inside of rocks.
Yeah.
I mean, they were anything to make it look like it wasn't a camera. So I do kind of feel there is a little merit to that. That's not the only case. You're talking about how they know where your eyes are.
Yeah.
And that's another big thing for cats. Big cats will only attack from behind because they like to get your claws in your forehead and break its prey's neck so they can bite there. So people in India actually wear masks backwards while they're working the fields. So it kind of works on the same premise that you're talking about, just in reverse.
Right.
That is really interesting.
And that's a relatively dumb animal, a big cat. And they're smart. But they're nothing like our intelligence.
No, because it's instinctive. They know how to hunt that way. That's how they hunt. So it's been passed down. But that's crazy. So we're coming up here towards the end of the show, but I really want to hear a little more about your book that you got.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the news book I come out with, and I wrote it because people just kept asking me and kept saying, well, I hear about this DNA study, but I hear, it's a bunch of bunk, Melba Ketchum faked all this stuff and blah, 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 and, all this craziness. And so, I mean, literally, actually after the Colorado, after David's conference, so many people asked me about it. I looked at David and said, David, I've got to write a book about this. I mean, I'm getting these questions all the time. So it's called The Truth Denied, the Sasquatch DNA Study. And it's from my perspective, because I was a contributor, and I did have a little bit of inside knowledge at times because, I was in NABS and David, and then I became friends with Mel McKetchin and some of the other submitters. So, I kind of wrote the book from my perspective, from the beginning to end. And, it's actually, it's an interesting, but I think a sad story, because if you boil it all down in a nutshell, it was a loose group of people. There was Dr. Ketchum, there was David Pilates, there was, there was
Dennis Fall,
and all the study he was involved in, the Olympic project, and then there was Adrian Erickson, his project. And so all these very strong, very driven personalities, it's a miracle they even came together, but they actually came together. Wally Hersham helped, finance the venture. And, and these people found a way to work together to get these samples to Dr. Ketchum. And she was, everybody says, oh, it was Dr. Ketchum's study. And no, it was not. There was a team of scientists. It was not her. There was a team of scientists. And basically, after she got her first set of results, she realized, contamination's probably going to be thrown in my face, and I don't want to be doing the lab work because people are going to say, well, I just forced it or fudged it.
Right.
So she actually used a total of 13 nationally known laboratories for double-blind studies. So she'd get the sample in. She'd set it off and said, please run a DNA identification on this sample.
Without telling him what she thought they were analyzing.
Go ahead. What? I didn't hear you.
Without them knowing what they were analyzing. It was blind.
That's right. They had no knowledge of what they were testing for. Now, a couple of labs, the people got curious and they blasted. Blasted is Gem Bank is a depository that has all the genomes that, dumped in it, the database. And then what scientists can do, they can use a search engine. It's called a blast engine, and they can electronically upload their sequence, and then they can do a search. They can compare it and match it to something that's already in the database.
Okay.
Well, some of the scientists, two of these labs, they got curious because they're getting the results, and they look, these results are weird. What in the world is she having us test? And so they would blast them and then come back unknown. And then, two of them just flat out asked her, what did you give us? Now, one of the guys was okay with it. He actually asked her, he said, this thing is weird. Have you discovered a new species? Now, he didn't know what species she was. He just said, have you discovered a new species? The other lab, which when they were doing the microscope, my mind just went blank, where you do the microscope, and it was North Carolina, and they said, there's some weird stuff going on with this DNA. What organism is it from? And she said, well, we're looking at possible Sasquatch, and they freaked out. And the lab director said, well, what? You're not getting your samples. We forbid you to talk about it, yada, yada, yada. And basically, we had Dr. Ketchum had threatened to sue him because she'd already paid him for the work. And they finally come back and said, okay, we're going to give you the results, but you do not have permission to use our name or to say it was from our lab, but you can use the results in this study. Because it was they were doing a confirmation from another lab to verify that they both had the same results, which they did. So, there were multiple, scientists were in the study. There were multiple labs used, and so, and bless her heart, Dr. Ketchum was very naive. She thought if the science is good, they'll accept it. And early on, after her she had a meeting with Dr. Keller and George Knapp, and David had arranged it. And Combe Keller looked at her and said, read the study and looked at her and says, "This is great," but he said, "Ain't nobody gonna publish it." And she looked, and she's like, "What?" He said, "I'm telling you, there's no journal in the world that's going to touch this with a 10-foot pole. But the science is good." He said, "It doesn't matter. It's Bigfoot."
Right.
He said, "No one's going to touch it." He said, "I'm sorry to tell you that, but I'm being honest." He said, "No one will touch this." Of course, they moved forward and kind of like, what are you talking about? It's good science. This is science. You can't fake DNA. You got blind studies that, the DNA results are what they are. And, she found out and he was right.
And Scott,
Nature, go ahead.
That they claimed, the labs, in response to finding out what they were supposedly analyzing, what was not their rebuttal that you guys had contaminated your samples?
Well, they tried to say that samples were contaminated, but if that's the fact, then the labs, then we need to start letting people out of Texas jails, because 2 of the labs used were forensic labs, and so if they were contaminated, the lab's contaminated.
Well,
so we need to start letting people out of jail.
Well, yeah. I mean, that is an issue that's come up recently.
Yeah, that's the problem. See, that's the problem. The samples, basically, you can clean the samples.
Yeah.
And so if you say they were contaminated, then you're saying the lab, whatever lab it was, I'll look it up and I can tell you all the different labs that she used. But you're saying that these labs, contaminated the samples. And so that's why she did it. I mean, North Louisiana Criminalistics Laboratory, DNA Diagnostics, Southwestern Institute of Forensic Science, Family Tree DNA, SEGRI of Houston, Helix Biology of Detroit, Michigan, USC, Los Angeles, University of Texas at Arlington.
That's crazy.
Texas A&M, University of North Carolina, Texas Veterinary Medical Diagnostics, Hughley Pathology. So if you want to say, these labs contaminated, well, especially with the North Louisiana Criminal Laboratory in Shreveport, Louisiana, I said Texas. I guess Louisiana needs to start letting these people out of jail.
But if they say it was contaminated, what I don't understand is, how can you contaminate DNA? How can you get your DNA in the other DNA and contaminate it?
Yeah, because it's not Jurassic Park. You're not splicing DNA together. No. You're mixing
how could they
strands.
even claim it was contaminated when you cannot mix DNA?
Yeah, because you would just show up as 2 different.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
See, she had a sequencer. They used a electronic sequencer, and it has what they call Q scores. In other words, basically, if you have multiple, it's like a transparency, right? So to get the DNA to show up, you take DNA, and the more of it you have, basically you're stacking it one on top of the other, and the more you have, the more clear the transparency is.
Okay.
Well, if you have mixed DNA, in other words, you have DNA from 3 or 4 different subjects, but when you overlap this DNA with primers, it's going to be a mess. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be clear. It's not going to be concise. Well, that's not what they had. They had in their sequencer, they had Q scores well above 80, in the high 80s, early 90s. That means the samples were pure. Plus, you can wash the hairs. Like when you get the hair, they followed forensic
procedures
protocols to wash, to wash and purify the hair. And even, they use the same, even Brian Sykes admitted, and I've got a quote in my book where he admitted that, you can wash and decontaminate the hair. So, and some of her samples were actually robotically processed. She had a hunk of flesh that they cored it with a machine So they weren't contaminated. The problem, the reason people say it's contaminated is because the mitochondrial DNA comes back human, and the nuclear DNA comes back unknown. And so basically, the maternal lineage of Bigfoot is a human woman. It's the father, it's the male lineage that's unknown. And you see that with a lot of cryptids. They all come in. And this goes back for years, many years back in the early days, in the 80s and 90s of DNA studies. Somebody would watch a Bigfoot, run across the field and watch him go across a barbed wire fence and watch his big strands of hair get pulled out. They'd run over there and get the hair, and they'd send it off to the local lab. And of course, the lab at that time, mitochondrial is the easiest DNA to extract and run, and they'd run the mitochondrial DNA. They come back human. Oh, we must have contaminated.
Right.
Well, this happened over and over and over. Even David's the one that come up, actually had a blog post on it saying, look, for all these years, we've had all these, people see them actually leave the sample, but it always comes back human, and people don't want to believe it's human, so it has to be contaminated. Well, maybe it's not contaminated, and maybe the mitochondrial DNA is human. And then with the Sasquatch genome study, that's pretty much what they showed. The mitochondrial DNA is basically human.
So they're a human
hybrid. So it's always going to come back. So basically what you have with the study is you had a hair that its morphology was not human, but it yielded human mitochondrial DNA.
Huh.
Because they had especially when Melba was doing her study, it was very expensive to do these runs, okay? And they learned early on that there's something about the Bigfoot hair that if all you have is a hair, you really can't, there's some blocker, there's some chemical that blocks it, and the primers won't work, and you can't get a DNA result from just a hair. But if you have a skin tag, in other words, you have some flesh on that hair, you will get a result back because you've got flesh. Hmm. So, the word went out, don't send us hair that doesn't have a skin tag. So that's when I figured out how to use packing tape and baking, and I pulled the hair out by the root. And then they were able to get results. So the first rule of Bigfoot hair, if someone runs a true Bigfoot hair and it doesn't have a skin tag, it won't come back. So if you ever see one of these studies and these guys say, yeah, we ran the hair and we couldn't get any results, well, then that was probably a real Bigfoot hair.
Right.
And then if they do look under the microscope and they say, well, this is not a human hair, and then they run the DNA and it comes back mitochondrial, and then they sit there with that dumb look on their face, and say, well, this was contaminated. No, it wasn't contaminated. It was a Bigfoot hair. So, but we keep going in this cycle round and round and round on all your TV shows.
It's because of the bias against Sasquatch, scientifically.
Yeah.
Where's your book going to be available for purchase for everyone?
They can go. They can go to my. I have several blog websites, but they can go to the Bigfoot Field Journal. It's bf-field-journal.blogspot.com.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'll make sure we put that in the link.
We'll
too.
put a link as well.
Yeah, I'll send you the link, and I've actually got a page for my book. It's called Truth Denied Sasquatch DNA Study. .blogspot.com, but and then my other books, once they get to the Bigfoot Field Journal, all the links, if they look on the sides.
And your book is printed and ready to purchase. Is that right?
That is right. I've got an ebook version. It's more economical, and then I've got the paperback that's on Amazon.
Sweet.
So it's on Amazon too. Okay, good deal.
Yeah. If they go to Amazon and search for Truth Denied or Scott Carpenter Truth Denied Sasquatch Genome Study, it'll come up.
Well, we're going to have to see if we give you the you don't know Squatch bump. You're going to have to let us know.
There you go. Hopefully
you have to come back and be on the show and let us know about that.
Well, hey, Scott,
sure.
we really appreciate you being on our show, and this was fascinating. I learned some more stuff tonight about the the genome study that I did not know. So,
And I'm interested.
Yeah.
I've gained so much more interest in the fact that you guys are separated by thousands of miles, and you guys have a lot of similar stories.
Yeah, we do.
I think that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
well, we are grateful.
What was that?
You'll find similar. I said you'll find similar behaviors, and
Yep.
regardless of whether you're in Washington State or South Florida,
Yep.
there's a lot of similarities.
Yep.
That's what we're coming to find.
Well, thank you, Scott. We really appreciate you giving us some time, and I think our listeners are going to love this episode.
Yeah, it's really good talking to you. Thank you for your time, sir.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it.
All right.
We'll be in touch.
Wow, that was a great episode. That was really informative.
I told you,
mean,
didn't I? I told you there's going to be a lot in this one.
Yeah, like once again, I go in like with an attitude of one way, and then you guys kind of like get me, and I'm kind of that's very interesting about the camera being backwards and it working out for him.
Camera being backwards, and he's got some footage on there, more than just a Bigfoot. There wasn't time, but he's got footage on there of something that sure looks like a dog man.
Well, we'll be sure to,
Yeah.
like we said, we'll be sure to post that link to all of his footage,
his video,
and his
videos.
channel, and also his book. I mean, that seems
Yeah.
really interesting.
Well, the one thing I didn't realize was he's got that they submitted DNA samples to 13 laboratories. That's a lot of labs.
I was surprised by that. He just kept going. I can understand a couple of Texas. I was educated in Texas. I know how they do. But yeah, that's crazy. I mean, all the schools that participated in that.
Yes.
Well, all right. So that's it for this time. So, like always, everybody, be sure to like us or tell your friends to like us, because I already know you're listening, on all available podcasts or YouTube. And we love the sub and shares, and send us your questions.
Yes, we'd love to hear what you want to know.
And, until we do get back to your questions, always remember,
You don't know squatch.